When I was a freshman, that was the first year that 2 women were invited to potentially come and live in the dorm, African American women. And there was much speaking, not by administrators, but by my fellow classmates. Some of them were not responsive in a positive way to these women coming in to live in the dorm. So sorting out those differences of opinion were far more salient to me as a freshman than the war in Vietnam and all the stuff that was facing my generation.
And we challenged the university around issues of race and what was acceptable on campus and among students. And I think the university at first, my view was that they weren't doing it, dealing with it in a helpful way.
Our professors didn't all agree with one another. They didn't necessarily agree with us.
I think at the end result actually resulted in the few number of black students, for example, who were on the campus, us having a greater voice in what was acceptable behavior on the university campus.
And now we are making ourselves known for being a hospitable environment for all kinds of voices, because that's how every voice learns to be more effective in communicating.
These kind of very controversial issues meant that you had to be willing to hear some things that made you very, very uncomfortable. And today is not that dissimilar. Both faculty and students are challenged with trying to discern what is acceptable and not, what is freedom of expression versus incitement. And so the challenges are different, but the issues, in fact, I think are still the same.
I think at Wake Forest, we're somewhat unique because we have a very strong and cherished tradition of free speech. It goes back over 100 years to President Poteet, who stood firm against the founders of this university, the North Carolina Baptist Convention, when he wanted to teach evolution at Wake Forest.
It was an act of academic freedom, and it was one that was a reference point for many at Wake Forest in the decades to follow.
In the 1950s and 1960s, Dr. George McLeod Bryan was a leading advocate for civil rights and in opposition to the Vietnam War. We gave him the latitude to do that. In the 1970s, renowned pornographer Larry Flynt received an invitation from a student group to speak on campus. And the Board of Trustees and President James Ralph Scales stood firm again on the notion of free speech and allowed Larry Flynt to come and speak on campus. For that act of courage and free speech, Wake Forest received the very prestigious Alexander Meiklejohn Award.
It was very significant, though, because it reaffirmed the firm commitment of Wake Forest to academic freedom.
It's given only for instances in which a university shows an outstanding commitment to free speech. Since the award was established in 1958, it's been given only 22 times. The last time it was given was in 2010, so it's rarely given. When Dr. Scales retired as president of Wake Forest, he was asked what his single greatest memory of Wake Forest was, and he cited the Meiklejohn Award because he said Wake Forest stood firm to protect academic freedom and free speech.